Hi, Rye Moms. Today I'm talking with the lovely and talented Anne Mottola. Anne is the author of the children's book series called Wonders in the Garden. Anne today is going to share with us how she became an author. She's going to give us tips on how we could become authors. And wait till the very end because she's going to be giving us 3 tips on her daily habits that she attributes to her success in life. Hi, and welcome to Ryemarkable Moms, where I talk to Rye moms who are doing remarkable things. I'm Liz Woods. Today I'm here with the multi-talented Anne Mottola. Hello, Anne.
Hello, Liz.
Thank you for having me today. Anne is the mom to the beautiful 17-year-old Hannah. She is a graduate of the University of Virginia and got her master's in social work at Fordham University. She has over 30 years of graphic design experience, and she's the garden instructor at Osborne Elementary School and the New York Botanical Garden. And her latest success is that she's published 3 children's books in a series called Wonders in the Garden. And these books are all about gardening. Anne wrote them, and her sister illustrated them, so they're a really special series. And I think every Rye mom that I've been talking to lately is trying to think of strategies and ways to reduce screen time and get kids playing outside in nature. And these books are such a great way to encourage children to garden, to go outside and explore nature. So they're wonderful. So thank you. And they're right in line with the science curriculum in town. So they're learning about it in school, and then these books go right along with it. So thank you. I can put the links below in the description box so people can check them out if you're interested. And here we go. Let's learn about Anne. So tell us about the books that you have just published.
Okay, there are 3 books, and it's in a series called Wonders in the Garden. The first book is called What Grows in the Garden. That was published last December. What Lives in the Garden and What Do You Sense in the Garden. They were both published last February. And they were published by the New York Botanical Garden Press, which is a publishing house that's been in existence for a very long time. It operates out of the New York Botanical Gardens, and I was not aware that it even existed. And they were the ones that published our book, the first children's book that they've ever published.
Great. So you work at the Botanical Garden?
I work at the Botanical Garden. I've been there for the past 10 years. It's a part-time seasonal position. I work at a portion of the garden called the Family Garden, which is a 2-acre farm. They're in the process right now of renovating the whole site, and they are changing the name to the Edible Academy, so it's going to be a fancier garden, very beautiful. The program, Hannah actually was involved in it when she was a 2nd grader, and she aged all the way through to becoming a volunteer until she got too busy and wasn't able to do it anymore. But anyway, so she was in the program, and the man who is now my boss knew that I was working in schools and had an interest in gardening, and he approached me and said would I be interested in teaching there. And so I was hired, like I said, about 10 years ago, and I've been working there ever since. It's a program that operates in the spring and fall on Saturday mornings, and in the summer on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and children come from all over the area, whether it's Westchester, New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, and they come to the garden. They spend a few hours with us. We do a lesson that we were given by our program coordinator, and then they do a like an hour or so of gardening. So what happened was, because I teach there and also run the garden and teach at Osborne School as well as a couple of other school gardens, I have to write lesson plans. And so, for example, there's a lesson I do about parts of a plant, and I didn't have a book that I could find because I like to have a book to correspond with my lesson. And so I wrote it, and I was using just hand-drawn pictures and letters, and was using them for years, and have had different people say to me, you should do something with these books. And so I realized I have a sister, Maria, who is an illustrator. She does that on the side. She has another very full-time job as a director of the New York Foundation. But when she's not doing that, she takes art classes at Art Students League. And she also loves to draw and has been doing that for a long time. So we had talked over the years about writing a children's book or whatever, putting a book together, but we never did it. And so when this opportunity came about, I thought I should really talk to her and see if she'd be interested in collaborating with me. And she said, absolutely. And so after that, what I did was I met with a friend of mine who had just recently published some books himself. He had self-published, and so he knew my work. We had worked together at a design agency years ago, and then he also knew of Maria's work, and he looked at everything. He's like, you should really do something with this because it's great. And so he suggested pursuing or approaching the Botanical Garden just to see if they might be able to help us in some fashion. And again, I didn't know that there was this publishing house at the garden. And so when I met with the director of children's education at the garden, he said, Anne, do you know that there's this publishing house at the Botanical Garden? I said, I did not. And so he was able to arrange a meeting with Maria and I, as well as the people that run the press. And they looked at our work and they said, it's lovely, it's wonderful. And they had never done a children's book. They mostly do academic textbook type books. They've never done a children's book. So ours was the first children's book that they published, which was great.
There's a lot of Rye moms who would like to publish a book.
Yes.
Whether it's a children's book or fiction or poetry. What steps could they take to publish a book? I know yours wasn't the most traditional style, but...
Right. My advice to moms would be, like, depending upon which track you decide to take, whether to self-publish or to go through a publishing house, you know, to make sure you ask the right questions and get the supports that you need to do that. There is some organizations, one of which I became a member of after we started this process. One is called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and they offer all kinds of conferences and workshops, and it's a great way to network with other people that, you know, whether you're a writer or an illustrator and you need help finding an agent or advice as to, depending upon the topic of your book, you know, what publisher might be a better publisher to approach with your manuscript. So they're just a great resource.
And are there daily habits that you can attribute to your success? Maybe 3 things that you do every single day?
Probably the first one that I do every day, that I always say it's kind of like brushing teeth for me, but I make physical activity part of my day in some capacity. And so it might be going for a run, it might be going for a walk, a bike, a swim, but I definitely, or going to the Y, I spend a lot of time at the Y, but I try to make physical activity part of my day in some way. I just feel like it's a way for me to make my lists and clear my head and plan my day. And just have some time for myself. Another habit would be to, I have just one daughter, I shouldn't say just, but I have a one and only, and she's wonderful. But as a mom, I really do make a point to make sure I check in with her. She's now 17, and she is busy with friends and busy with crew and busy with school. And I just think it's really important that no matter how busy your child might be, or children might be, or you are, that it's just good to make sure you have some amount of time with them in your day. It may not be a long stretch of time, but just some quality time with them. The third thing is I really feel, you know, being a parent of a only and who's about to leave for college, you know, as much as I have had a lot of friends say to me, like, oh, it's great to have your peace and quiet and some time alone and some independence, I truthfully feel like, you know, yes, there is a benefit to that, but I love being around people. I grew up in a house with 5 siblings, and it was, we didn't have a big house, so we were kind of cramped in the space. We had people over all the time. And we spent a lot of time with my grandparents, so I feel like I'm used to that. And so sometimes this house, as wonderful as it is, it can be a little too quiet. And so I find that the other thing that I really make a point of doing is to you know, spend time being around people in whatever way that might be. So on the days when I'm teaching, it might be being in a classroom with children, which I love to do. It might be going over to the Y to see my friends there. It might be just making sure I make a phone call or send an email or text to a friend, and just make sure I feel connected to people in my day, when my house can be a little too quiet sometimes.
Okay, Ryemarkable Moms, thank you so much for watching today. If this is your first time here, I would love it if you'd hit the subscribe button, because each week I'll be coming out with new videos with different Rye moms in town. Next week, Mottola will be back, and she's going to be talking about diet and exercise, and that's really an area of expertise for her, so please be sure to stay tuned for that. And I know all of you Rye moms have positive tips and suggestions that can help make the world a better place, and I'm happy to do what I can to share those messages, which leads me to our question of the day. And the question of the day is, what are your daily habits that help you be successful in life? Comment below and we can start sharing our stories together. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this amazing community. Hope to see you next week, if not sooner.